making videos and millions of people are hearing you say things are going to happen, I think that you're influencing it.
How?
Because if you're like, say some really horrible thing, and I'm like, oh, okay, and I believe you, I might go get involved.
So you're saying the people who watch me, who don't like, who like, there's Antifa people watching me going like, that is a good idea. Tim's right. We should go to people's homes, even though they already did.
Or if you're like, Antifa's horrible, someone might be like, I got to get a gun and go fight Antifa. They're horrible.
That's just normal communications. Anyone can do that.
Yeah, when it comes to this story, I don't know if you remember, but Paul Pelosi was attacked in his home by someone using and wielding a hammer, who ended up cracking him in the skull, I believe. It was a pretty horrifying story when it came out. And boy, did the right ever have conspiracies about the whole thing. I'm sure you all remember at this point, they were saying that it was, in fact, a Canadian sex worker who was hired by Paul Pelosi because he's, in fact, either a homosexual, pansexual, or bisexual, secretly. He's never revealed it. And in the middle of their sex act, apparently, a hammer, which was going to be used maybe for something else, we don't know, things turned violent. We don't know why, but yeah. There was a lot of things that they were kind of curious about when it came to this conspiracy theory, like the glass. Why is the glass smashed on the outside of the house? See, if I was to understand this thing we call physics, that doesn't make sense unless someone was behind it on the other end with a hammer and smashed it. Yes, what about that? And then there was a local reporter who had made a fuck up. They retracted what they said. They, in fact, did not have actual verified facts and then had to retract what they said. And that local reporter's retraction was also spread as a conspiracy theory because at the end of the day, they were like, why is everyone silencing this? It was like, no one's silencing this. He retracted his statement because it was not based in fact. Sometimes that happens with not only local reporters, but like, you know, people who are broadcasting across the entire US of A. They can fuck up when they're on 24-hour news cycles. It happens. So you got all these conspiracy theories. I wanted to replay a little bit of it. So
minutes.
Have
Why can't they get their story straight here? Why did they delete this? What is really going on here? And the people who are asking questions were right all along. But this gets even deeper because NBC just released another article, another report. And the headline of it is, quote, the GOP has Paul Pelosi's blood on its hands. I mean, come on. I mean, just when you're trying to manipulate an event for your own personal political benefit, now we have such outrageous lies and confusion and so many different versions of events here. What's going on?
I disagree. I think this is just as bad as 9/11. This is racist 9/11.
No. Even worse. This is worse than January 6th.
No, it's
way worse than 9/11 and January 6th and Pearl Harbor.
Look, who hasn't been caught wrestling on the floor with some guy in his underwear and a hammer when his wife's not home in his house? Like, if that hasn't happened to you, like, you can throw the first stone, okay?
Yeah, but now they're saying the guy wasn't in his underpants.
Right, why?
Yeah, because remember,
that story too. No, look. They said he was in his underpants.
Now, first off, if you don't know what actually happened according to stories, and hey, by the way, they did end up releasing police footage, but that wasn't enough. Once the police footage was released, like all conspiracy theorists who profit off this kind of shit, a lot of their narratives suddenly changed, and then they're like, okay, well, maybe the glass is a little bit more explainable. But now there's some new parts. You can clearly see in the police footage that, you know, they're struggling, right? And one of them is in their underwear. Like, what's going on there, right? Like, is that not proof of gay shit? It's gay shit, right? This was gay shit. This is what I think gay shit is. They're doing gay stuff. That's the gay. I'm pretty sure I'm looking at gay right now.
They said he was in his underpants, and then they found zip ties, and then people went, "Where did he put the zip ties?" And they went, "He had a backpack." And they're like, "So he had a backpack in his underpants."
Okay.
Well, he wasn't in his underpants.
That clears up everything. That clears up everything. No, I mean,
release the cameras. They have cameras. They won't release them.
This all could end if they release the footage, and the fact that they won't, I think
they did. Sorry. Well, this was, to be fair, before, so yeah, that it hadn't happened yet at this point.
Says something. What it says, I don't know. But I mean, you can go back to the 911 call, and what does Paul Pelosi say? His name is David, and he's my friend.
He says, I don't. Well, he didn't say that.
Okay, so just so everyone knows, if you happen to be a high-ranking government official in the United States, there's most likely that you've had discussions with security teams, as Nancy Pelosi has one, and obviously she would have had her security team speak to very close family members, such as her husband as well. There's no conspiracy there in that some of the tactics that they will teach you if you're about to become a hostage or involved in a hostage situation is not to let the person who's about to either attack you, kill you, or take you hostage make them aware that you are calling the police. So if you're on the phone and they're right across from you behind a door, like you're in the bathroom, they're outside of the bathroom, and you're trying to call the police, you don't say, there's a person outside of my bathroom door trying to kill or kidnap me right now, please arrive quickly. Because by saying that, the person will immediately be like, holy shit, I don't have a lot of time, kick the door in and fucking start doing stuff. That's like, this is very, very 101 stuff. I do not know, I'm not a professional trained in this. Watch any video, you know, obviously not by Baz Rutten. Baz Rutten will teach you how to stab people in the liver multiple times, not that kind of stuff. But if you watch videos on this kind of stuff, yes, that is typically what a lot of that training has to do with. So obviously, when you're on the phone with someone, you might use a bit of coded language or try to use coded language, at which point, while you're using coded language, the other person will start giving you cues. So can you say the word beach ball if you are in immediate danger right now, sir? It's like, yeah, we should go to the beach and play with that beach ball you've been talking about so much. Something to that effect. That's what the story was once everything started coming out as well. Again, I'm not trying to just 100% dunk on everyone here with, like, you know, the power of hindsight. I'm hindsight man, because, you know, this was recorded before a lot of that information came out. But it just goes to show you how much of a conspiracy theorist all of these motherfuckers are, and how they just spread all these conspiracy theories. They do it on fucking Maine. They get paid so much money for it. And then when elements of proof come out, like look at the new developments with Steven Crowder and the manifesto for the shooter that he specifically is talking a lot about and leaked the manifesto of, allegedly because they happen to be trans. It was a trans man. But in that case, they all said one of the reasons why the shooter was doing the shooting was because of gender ideology. They kept talking about that. This was an attack, a hate crime on Christians by trans people. Yeah, they told us for a while that they're going to be going after us. There's the Trans Day of Remembrance, and then there's going to be like the Trans Day of Extremism and murder coming up and all that kind of shit. They were spreading that so much. And then finally, he releases parts of what he alleges is the manifesto, and since the police are investigating, and it looks pretty sure now at this point to be confirmed, turns out it's a journal, just as the police originally told us. That was a statement made by the police. It was a journal, and in that case, there wasn't a coherent political ideology that we could point towards a motive, towards why someone, so it's less of a manifesto and more, again, entries into a journal. But yes, like they mentioned as well, it uses the F slur. It uses the F slur a bunch. And then in the midst of that, yes, it uses the C word. I gotta say the C word on Twitch, but it uses the C word. And because of that, and it mentions things like class and white privilege, that they think that now, okay, whoa. Okay, so maybe it wasn't because of gender ideology. Let's scrap all that. Let's switch though. We got something new, and it's another thing that we all love to talk about. This was racism towards white people and a fucking mass shooting of white folk because they were white. That's what this is. Well, ignore the slurs used towards queer folk. Don't talk about that, because then that might complicate things a lot. But we'll stick with that. New story.
The cop is reporting what he heard.
Right.
And so the cop is like, he says he doesn't know the
Yeah,
male,
my
but his
slot
name is
buckets are
David,
coming
and he's
soon.
a friend, and
Yeah,
he's going to wait for his
right.
wife.
That's right.
Now, then it makes sense that the story was Paul dialed 911 without letting the dude know, and then was talking loudly in code, saying something like,
Wow,
I don't
Tim.
know you. And the guy was probably like, don't
Whoa, what is this, a urinalism?
worry, I'm a friend. I want to talk to Nancy. I wonder if the real story was this guy is a leftist. He's got BLM in his window.
That lasted not even 30 seconds. That was 30 seconds, wasn't it? It was what the span of time when he started, and then all of a sudden was like, but hear me out here.
He's got a pride flag.
15.
He lives with Berkeley hemp hippies. I wonder if he was like, I need to talk to Nancy. Like, she's going to help me. Do you remember when that guy climbed Trump Tower and he said, I need to talk to Trump? He was a supporter. He wasn't a hater. I wonder if that's what happened. And then when Pelosi calls the cops, he's thinking like everything's fine. And then the dude ends up hitting him or something.
Yeah.
Maybe he
Yeah, I don't know.
pretended like
Or
he
how
was
about
calling
this?
Nancy.
Hold on. I got another story for you. What if the police hit Paul Pelosi? What if what really happened is Paul did call the cops? No, hear me out. What if Paul called the cops and the cops rush in freaking out, break the glass, kick the door in, and then see Paul in his underwear, hit him, knock him down, and then go, oh, crap, that was the homeowner. And hold on, that would explain why they said the intruder was in his underwear. It was an unknown man who answered the door, and now they're changing their story.
He could have been drunk and rowdy and out of control, and they were like, "Hey, bring in the hobo down the street. We got to blame this on somebody." But who knows what
That's
happened
crazy
here
too.
That's another possibility here.
Well, so, what if No, and maybe they brought him. I don't
What does the bottom of that shirt say? It says, being happy and healthy is revolutionary. What? What's the last part?
know. I don't want to get too conspiratorial, but what if Paul
Oh, sorry. You were ramping up. Yeah. Like, no, I'm building up to this. You got to wait a little while. And then we're going to pop off.
does call the cops, and when he sees the cops, he runs to the door yelling or doing something frantic, and the cops just boom right in the face.
So I guess kind of this the same conspiracy theory from before, but in this new conspiracy theory, it's got Paul Pelosi charging at the cops. In that case, yeah, just ah! This is gay shit. It's like, what the fuck?
The 82-year-old was already injured, or what his mental state was, say sources. According to court documents, when the officer asked what was going on, defendant smiled and said everything's good. But instantaneously, a struggle ensued as police clearly saw David DePape strike Paul Pelosi in the head with a hammer. After tackling the suspect, officers rushed to Mr. Pelosi, who was lying.
So this part of the story, I'm assuming like you're now going to change what you're talking about.
Leaders have previously said Pelosi did not know DePape when the 42-year-old broke into his home.
How did they know?
Why Pelosi didn't try to flee.
I'm saying is we've not seen hard evidence. The story is as they claim. We've not seen videos. We've not seen.
And I guess whenever this one came out, this was what, 1 year ago? Okay, yeah, a lot of that stuff, the full details hadn't come out, so why not just speculate wildly and spread a whole bunch of homophobic conspiracy theories about that it being a sex worker from Canada who was hired by Paul Pelosi, and just something, you know, went wrong in the middle of it somehow, and that he was speaking in code in order to, of course, have the police not show up, but they did unexpectedly. That's too bad, and then he got attacked or something. It's complex. Oh, we have testimony now.
We're following David DePape, the man accused of assaulting Nancy Pelosi's husband in their San Francisco home, took the stand today in his federal trial. He's facing 2 federal counts: assault on the immediate family member of a federal official and attempted kidnapping of a federal official. Crown 4's Teresa Estacio joining us in the studio now with the details. Teresa.
Well, DePape confessed that he went to the Pelosi's home to talk with then Speaker Nancy Pelosi about the presidential election. At times, he was tearful on the stand. He did not deny striking Pelosi and cracking his skull.
Several times during his hour-long on the witness stand, David DePape wiped away tears as he attempted to explain why he went to the Pelosi home in San Francisco last October. He explained to the jury he believed there was a Russian involvement in the 2016 election. DePape said his ultimate plan was to get targets like Pelosi to admit their role in what he called...
This is quite the look. Did you see the Sam Bankman-Fried fucking clips and the drawings that came out? I mean, god damn, that's the kind of painting that would make fucking, like, you know, the greats, you know, what is it, Leonardo or Michelangelo fucking be like, oh yes, what, I have to paint a king. Oh well, absolutely, I'll do so, but I'll have to be you know, quite concise on how we do this.
...called the corrupt election.
Like, I don't know who this is, but they can get it. Like, goddamn, this has got to. Sorry, I got them in reverse order. This is you got to do the before and after. You know, after only 12 payments of $14.99, you can have Brain Force Plus Extreme and transform before your very eyes into the man you see before you.
In his own trial, his mental state now and at the time of the assault on Paul Pelosi, because his mental state is so critical in this case.
Legal analyst Stephen Clark.
It is Hassan, I'm dead. Yeah, you basically, did you want like Hassanabi filter? Oh yeah, I would love Hassanabi filter. What is it? Well, just like, you know, you'll get it. You'll see it when you see it.
He's a former prosecutor and current defense attorney. He says while putting DePape on the stand might have been risky, he also says that it helps the defense with their case.
It was important for the defense to say not only is he suffering from mental health issues, but he is remorseful, and he's gets it that he committed a violent act, and apologizing to the jury is never a bad idea. And I think that was helpful to his case because this was a vicious attack.
DePape's testimony came a day after Paul Pelosi called the attack traumatic. Pelosi said that he was awoken by a man yelling for his wife, Nancy. He also gave chilling testimony about how, after being struck in the head, he laid on the floor in his blood.
Paul Pelosi's testimony was critical to this case. He's a very high-profile individual, but at the same time, he came across as human to that jury, and what he went through was horrible, and they needed to hear that. They've only seen that video, but they need to see the reality of what happened to Paul Pelosi and the aftermath of what he's gone through.
Okay, so I want to talk about this for 2 seconds. And once again, I am absolutely no fan of the Pelosis. You know, I spend a lot of my time complaining about the Pelosis. And yes, two ideas can be held simultaneously. I don't think people who are my political opponents, their family members, should be cracked in the skulls with hammers. Why would someone do something like this? Why would someone get to this point where they have, they're ready to commit acts of violence, extremism, right? People getting radicalized to the point of, calling in bomb threats, school threats, threatening teachers, threatening doctors. And again, when it happens to be children's hospitals that are getting bomb threats, you're going to be interrupting the regular and necessary care that children need to live. So that's really fucked up shit. People bringing in guns, people shooting up schools, people shooting up mosques, people shooting up temples, people shooting up Jewish places of worship everywhere. Like that kind of shit, that is happening by radical far-right extremists. And what is radicalizing them is the question, right? Because you'll always get the, Tim Pools, Steven Crowders, Ben Shapiro's, Tucker Carlson's, Libs of TikTok, Higher Ed Check, all of them, they're most likely going to say, well, this is probably someone with mental health issues, severe mental health issues, and lone gunman. If they're, young and white, it's going to be, well, they, have their whole lives ahead of them. It'd be really tragic if a simple mistake done early in life is something that is going to, ruin their reputation. This came out yesterday. A narrow defense of DePape, perhaps angling for a more lenient sentencing based on the fact that he is not and was not in an irrational mindset when he committed the crime, shifting some blame to the rabid conspiracy theories that proliferate on the internet that convince the gullible DePape that Pelosi is a linchpin in the QAnon bizarro world of secret government-sponsored pedophilia. Once again, we're going to be talking about a very popular conspiracy theory that is spread by nearly every single right-winger you know, and including a lot of people who identify by other political persuasions, Jimmy Dore, the idea that perhaps sometimes there could be individuals who are trying to radicalize and indoctrinate children. Now, it runs, obviously, from people who are like, well, they're simply trying to teach the kids about things that I don't find appropriate, all the way to they are abducting children to be part of a secret pedophile cult, and we have to stop this. And it goes all the way to the highest levels. You can find it in Wayfair cabinets, and you can find it fucking in the blood of Hollywood liberals and elites. When Bush was in office, I thought 9/11 was an inside job, he said. He burst into tears minutes into the questioning as the Chronicle reports as one of his attorneys asked him how his political views shifted from being more liberal to more right-wing loony. At the time, I was biased against Trump, he said, but there's truth there, so if there's truth out there, I don't know, I want to know it. DePape testified that he was a fan of YouTube commentators Tim Pool and James Lindsay. Tim Pool, once again, being brought up when it comes to extremist violence, and James Lindsay. I'm sure you all remember James, who has probably been one of the biggest and most prolific uses of the groomer slur on Twitter. Before he got his account roasted, prior to that, he loved calling people groomer. He called me groomer fucking shit tons of times. He'll quote tweet you, call you groomer, or say okay groomer. That's basically the only two lines he knew for a long time. And then I started pointing out that he was really good friends with one of the leading members of the pedophilic NXIVM cult, and showing up on road trips with, again, one of the high-ranking members of a pedophile NXIVM cult, and that same person, who was a high-ranking member of the pedophile NXIVM cult, actually was saying that he taught her everything she taught him everything that he knows. Yeah. So that's pretty fucked up. And it took a while, but it took finally his own fans turning on him for him to block me. And it was when one of his fans was no fan of the Serfs, but you gonna answer for this? What the fuck's going on here, bro? And it's like, yeah, that's pretty bad. That's pretty bad. Oh, I forgot they did a recreation of the Breakfast Club. Yeah, they all posed in the same positions as the Breakfast Club poster. You know, that movie famously about teenagers and their lives and speaking out against authority and rebelling and suffering from abuse. And yeah, that they remade it because it's fun. And that it was Lindsay who convinced him that there are academics out there trying to poison the nation's children and indoctrinate them into some sex cult. The logic here is that feminist and queer theorist Gail Rubin, a professor at the University of Michigan, is a key player in this QAnon world conspiracy in which schools become pedophile molestation factories, and the maladjusted children that come out of them automatically become communist activists. And why, if things were going so well, he still bludgeoned him with a hammer in front of police. He said, "I reacted because my plan was basically ruined. He was never my target, and I'm sorry he got hurt. He was holding him hostage because he wanted to get to Nancy Pelosi. Paul Pelosi, at the same time, was trying to do whatever he could, fearing for his life, and also not wanting to endanger the life of his wife in this case, and yes, used the strategy of contacting the police and using code words in order to alert them about what was happening, and then they showed up. When they showed up, you could see on the footage in the camera that you saw with your eyes that he becomes fucking distressed. He then attacks Paul Pelosi with a hammer. Paul Pelosi falls to the ground. The police rush in, charge, and at that point, they subdue him. That's what happened. But again, we have another example of fucking Tim Pool and James Lindsay radicalizing people. Even fucking Moonlord was warning people about this.
It's like a weird and wild conversation. It almost doesn't have place talking about side by side with politics. But when you're making videos and millions of people are hearing you say things are going to happen, I think that you're influencing it.
How?
Because if you're like, say some really horrible thing, and I'm like, oh, okay, and I believe you, I might go get involved.
So you're saying the people who watch me, who don't like, who like, there's Antifa people watching me going like, that is a good idea. Tim's right. We should go to people's homes, even though they already did.
Or if you're like, Antifa's horrible, someone might be like, I got to get a gun and go fight Antifa if they're horrible.
That's just normal communications. Anyone can do
that. What you're describing is what normal people do normally. Yeah, no, if you on your show all the time spread dangerous conspiracy theories to the point where you are convincing people in things like all fucking gay folk, for example, are perhaps an inherent danger to children. Anyone who dresses in drag is a danger to children. That trans people are coming after children. That they are trying to, sterilize kids. He spreads conspiracy theories that trans people want to sterilize kids, and that's why they're trying to indoctrinate them. And that if you support trans rights, well, then at the end of the day, you're supporting the mass sterilization of people. And he's also spread a conspiracy theory that he believes that they're trying to sterilize autistic people, because he's like, well, the majority of trans people are autistic. I was like, I don't know where you're getting that figure from, but he's like, well, then that means that you just want to commit a genocide against autistic people. That's what you're doing. Like, if you spread this shit and then say a mass shooting happens against queer people, a bunch of LGBTQ plus people, and trans people are killed, gay people are killed, bisexual people are killed, and people are dying fucking in their arms and shit like that. And then afterwards, you say, well, people were calling for a wood chipper. What did you think was going to happen? They held a grooming event. That was a grooming event. Yeah, they held a grooming event and something fuck around and find out, you know? That shit is horrifying. That shit does have an effect. That shit will influence people. And honestly, this is why I've said multiple times, this is definitely in violation of the TOS of YouTube. Like, the fact that YouTube is profiting off this, that Tim Pool is profiting off this, has real world fucking consequences. This is not the first time that violent extremists have fucking named Tim Pool. In fact, I wrote an entire fucking Daily Beast article about it, just to catalog everything between both Tim Pool and other far-right extremists who spread conspiracy theories online, and people who end up taking up arms and doing horrifying things, like in the case of Ben Shapiro, the Quebec mosque shooter. He was the #1 listed person on social media, on Twitter, that person was interacting with or engaging with or following or viewing his information. And at that time, Ben Shapiro was spreading the myth of the radical Muslim minority, where he would say things that were completely misrepresenting Pew Research research polls to try and convince people that Muslims are a threat to them, that Muslims are going to kill them, that Muslims are going to become inherently radicalized and violent as a result of reading the Quran, and because of that, they are going to commit acts of violence. And sure enough, someone who was viewing and ingesting a lot of that content went into a mosque and shot a bunch of innocent people. So yeah, there are real world consequences to never ever being held accountable or backing off or fucking having in any way, shape, or form some fucking way of correcting yourself when you spread this shit. Like, the videos stay up. All the videos that were originally stating that, yes, the trans shooter and the trans shooter's manifesto are going to reveal that it was because of gender ideology. That's why the cops are hiding it. And that's why there's this day of violence coming up. And that's why there are so many trans people who are going to take up guns and shoot people. That stuff can have real world consequences. The same thing with libs at TikTok. Higher right chick. She fucking has turned her personal Twitter profile picture into bombs, mocking the fact that there is a USA Today article on her cataloging the frequency in which children's hospitals will get bomb threats as a result of the posting that she does. And she thinks it's all a game. All of them do. That it's all fucking, oh well, and put it in Tim's words,
One might
right?
be like, I got to get a gun and go fight Antifa. They're horrible.
That's just normal communications. Anyone can do that.
What do you mean?
Like, people talk to each other.
It's a weird.
Most people don't have a megaphone or a network or, say, even a news program that reaches millions, multiple channels that reach millions of people. That you definitely have a difference there. There is a massive responsibility on the part of someone who has a network that big, as well as the publishing house of that network, which in this case happens to be YouTube, amongst others, to be able to be held accountable for spreading dangerous and violent conspiracy theories that get visible minorities in the United States killed. That is something most definitely that you have a responsibility towards. And if even your own co-host is calling you out, and trust me, Moonlord has put out tons of fucked up, weird ass, like, horrifying stuff himself. I'm not trying to absolve Moonlord, okay? The guy is fucking been spreading all this weird ass anti-Semitic stuff lately. That, like, there's fucking that shit is deplorable as well. But again, it's one of those things where, like, I don't know how many times shit like this needs to keep happening before any of them take it seriously.
Conspiracies driven by Gamergate that resulted in his plot to break into the Pelosi's home and to prove corruption. You see, his plan was simple. He wanted to kidnap Nancy Pelosi, force her to confess to corruption on camera, and post it on the internet. And he said he wanted to send a message to members of Congress that there are consequences for corruption. It's rather insane, if you ask me. But we're all big fans of the mainstream media, so let me just say
that was his test. That's him, in his own words. It's from his testimony that he gave in court. That's where it comes from.
Paul Pelosi, who was accused of trying to buy drugs from a man in San Francisco in a deal that went wrong, was, you get the point. As the media does. Yes, Paul Pelosi was accused of doing such a thing. There's no strong evidence for it. Just, I don't know, circumstance and people wondering why it is that this guy was able to get into his house. There was no security detail, and the story doesn't really add up. And now,
he hasn't retracted anything. He's going back on his show right after this all came out, after the testimony of the assailant himself, like the guy who did it. That's his testimony. And I was like, we don't really know the whole story. I think it's kind of weird. I don't know. Doesn't add up.
Quite conveniently, what the media is reporting is that DePape went on the stand and said James Lindsay, Glenn Beck, and Tim Pool, that he was watching these podcasts.
He said he was a fan. He used the word fan, that he was a fan of yours. One of your fans. This is one of your fans, Tim. A self-avowed fan of your show. You can't do the thing that you did when, again, the white supremacist shooter had been shown to watch several episodes of your show. You were like, well, he wasn't a fan of mine. He hadn't hit subscribe in the screenshot, so that's how you know. Yep. And you know, these specifically in being in interviews with extremists, yes, you know, I'm not saying I agree with Nick Fuentes or anything like that. I'm definitely not going to be calling him a neo-Nazi anti-Semite, though. I won't use those words or terms, but, you know, he's got more radical views for sure than you know, they're not orthodox.
And then got angry about corruption. But you know what? Look, man, my attitude on all this is I don't believe it. Don't know, don't care. I just don't believe it. This guy, it's so convenient that all of a sudden he's coming out and claiming like Glenn Beck and James Lindsay, me and many others were inspirational, or that's what he was listening to. It's absurd.
Well, there you have it. There you have it. Yeah. It's absurd. Yeah. Part of more. Hey, we got a new conspiracy theory brewing here, everybody. Maybe this person was coached. Yeah, coached. Coached to say these things, to make it look as if they were not mentally competent. Maybe that's it.
Nonsense. It's a meaningless thing they add to these stories because they're trying to drum up traffic by including our names in it and things like this. Because the reality is,
are you serious? That's what you're gonna go with? They're doing it for the clout. This is Clout. This is his fucking testimony. They're reporting on a story which, yes, is definitely newsworthy. We happen to have Nancy Pelosi's husband, whose skull got cracked by a fucking attacker who broke into the home because she was going to be trying to fucking hold both of them hostage. He wanted Nancy Pelosi, but she wasn't available. That's a big fucking far-right extremist radicalization online story playing out in real time. Can you imagine if this had happened in the opposite direction? Like, can you imagine? Like, all of a sudden there was like someone who was like, I was radicalized by Sam Cedar. Because I was radicalized by Sam Cedar, I went into Ted Cruz's house, but Ted Cruz wasn't there, and so I threatened to attack his wife, and then obviously his wife got really scared and it's like, can I just go to the bathroom? And I was like, fine, and I let her go to the bathroom, and then when she went to the bathroom right afterwards, I could hear her talking to someone, and she was talking, I don't know, it didn't sound bad or anything, so I didn't care. And then like she got out, and then I was saying how I was going to hold her husband hostage, and then I was going to make him confess on camera or else. And then all of a sudden the police stormed in, and so I smashed her in the head with a hammer. And then that's what happened, because I watched Sam Cedar, because I really like Sam Cedar in the Majority Report. And basically they had told me so many times that this person's bad, that this person is dangerous, and because of that I had to do something about it.
Yeah, each and every one of us have quite literally said that the things this guy does or did or is accused of doing is the opposite of victory. So it's just, I find it fascinating that
you not even going to really go really far here or anything, or defensively, like, well, just, by the way, I'm going to, in the strongest possible terms, condemn what this individual has done. I'm not going to frame it as if he's a soldier in the war who didn't do a good thing for the battle. This is not a victory. It's not how we achieve victory. We have other methods,
This is the narrative that's emerging a year later in testimony, because once again, James Lindsay's core point is your reaction is their goal. And so if you have a guy like him or me who are like, violence is the opposite of success, engaging in violent action is costing us, and the fact is we are winning, well, hold on. Why would someone who listens to these podcasts...
How are you, by what metric are you winning? I'm curious. What are you measuring there? You're constantly talking about election disappointments. The red wave never happened in the way you thought it was going to be. And then every single major election so far, even in some red states that has issues related to abortion, are failing completely. The idea where you can actually win an election solely on vilifying trans people is not playing out. It's turning out to be incredibly expensive and ineffective in driving voters to the polls. It seems to do a really good job of making all of you money because, again, right-wingers are fucking obsessed with trans people. They can't stop thinking about them. So yeah, it gets you the clicks and the views. That's it. Going after LGBTQ plus people in general does.
Actually go out and do something like this. Doesn't seem to make sense. Now, the simple answer, of course, Occam's razor would suggest this guy's nuts. And that's simply put. But of course, now the leftist narrative...
If that was Occam's razor, then why weren't you using that before? Before, you were talking about how this could potentially be a homosexual sex worker who was hired by Paul Pelosi, and that, who knows, something just went wrong.
Is to try and poison the well and make the argument that if you listen to Glenn Beck, me, many others, it's not just us, but those are the names I'm using. If you listen to us, that we're somehow inspiring these people to do these crazy things, which is, once again, if I make video after video after video where I'm like, we are winning, so we need to double down on get out the vote initiatives. We're winning the culture war. We're winning politically.
Okay, thank you. He's finally listing how they're winning. So much winning.
MAGA candidates are storming the gates. Matt Gaetz is winning.
No, they aren't. MAGA candidates are failing. There's some MAGA victories. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that there hasn't been MAGA victories and Trump endorsed victories. There's also a ton of fucking this was the Trump endorsed candidate, failed horrifically. This was the Trump endorsed candidate, failed horrifically.
Why would anyone in their right mind be like, well, I guess I better go do something crazy? Certainly, that's not what this show would actually inspire someone to do.
Well, I don't know, Tim. Maybe if you're constantly telling them that there is a threat to children, that children are being mutilated, that their genitals are being cut off, that children are being indoctrinated into programs that are intentionally done in order to sterilize them, and it's being collaborated by the highest levels and sponsored by corporations like Bud Light, who are then trying to get it into the hands of the everyday American. If you tell people that over and over and over, they're groomers, they're groomers, they're groomers. This was a grooming festival. This was a grooming event. This was a grooming fucking thing. Look how they're grooming. Look at this. Oh, let's show these shoe on head fucking pictures right now. Look at all the grooming going on. These are strippers grooming for children. This is all grooming. And then people are doing violence. They're committing acts of violence. They're taking up fucking arms, you know? And you're like, well, that one's not a victory. I say all the time, we're winning. We're winning in every single way. Not politically, but we're winning the culture wars. Definitely winning the culture wars.
In the meantime, what do we actually have? Far-left extremists in Atlanta with sharpened tools and weapons, gas masks, were, the police held a press conference about how residents were terrified of these far-left extremists. But we don't get these major breaking stories about these press conferences. No, it's in fact this one guy. Which brings me to what Stephen Marsh said on the Culture War podcast when he said that there are more.
Well, maybe because the idea of the husband of the Speaker of the House has a lot of political fucking prominence. It's a news story. It's one in which will drive traffic and clicks. More people are going to read that, perhaps. Could have something to do with it.
More seditionists on the right than the left. And I said, what's your metric? He said, court cases. Okay, my friend. You know, when the media is not picking up these stories.
What about as in when you're basically invoking a completely separate example in order to deflect without providing an argument as to why someone is like calling you out? So in this case, it's like rather than being like, I should do some self-reflection and really look at the fact that there seems to be now a pretty well-documented pattern of violent right-wing extremists who either watch my show or are fans of my show and then committing acts of violence in the real world. And the rhetoric that I'm putting out there, instead of doing any of that, I'm going to tell you about a completely separate example that no one wants to talk about. And now to distract you, here, look at this shiny thing.
Stories. When we are not seeing charges commensurate with the offenses from the left, then sure, if that's your metric, it's one of the most naive things imaginable. And anyone who takes a critical lens to this is going to be like, wait, hold on.
It would be yours, Tigwick. I don't have
Glenn
I don't have notification sounds on.
No, with all due respect to Glenn, he's tepid. That's the best way I can put it. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. I mean, he is a very calm guy as he talks about these.
His demeanor doesn't change the far-right radicalization that occurs from the fucking vile hate speech he spews. If he says it calmly, it's still the same sentence. Do you understand that? Yes, he's tepid in character, you know? I mean, come on. What people are getting radicalized by Glenn Beck? If he's just sitting there and he's like, you know, it really seems like they're coming for your children. They're trying to mutilate your children. Yeah, that's pretty calm. The message is probably going to still resonate with some extremists who are going to think, holy fuck, there's a whole bunch of pedophiles and I have to go save the kids. Let's do it.
These things. And
yeah, he radicalizes them smoothly.
Brought up
like, what the fuck?
All of these podcasts, typically and overwhelmingly, is vote. Rather interesting. But here's what I want to do. I want to show you the current state of this country and what the focus is of the corporate press. Now, to be fair, not every outlet is bringing up every single name. Most of the outlets don't mention me at all. I think I only found one news outlet that actually mentioned me as someone named in the testimony. But hey, you know, here we are. I'm entering.
It was his testimony. Yeah, the testimony, the words that came out of his mouth, the guy who did the crime. That's where it comes from. That's the source. It was reported in multiple news outlets.
History, I guess, is a very weird position to be in. But James Lindsay seems to be the bigger name in all of this. I think they're arguing that DePap.
Wow. This is a light version of it, but this is definitely a subtle throwing James Lindsay under the bus. My word. Some people are asking, who the fuck is James Lindsay? Okay, hold on. I'll give you a primer.
Listened to, well, the issue was this guy claimed he was concerned about groomers in schools and things of this nature, and that's why they're bringing up James Lindsay. But once again, James Lindsay's like principal argument, nonstop, all day, every day, is your reaction is the target's goal. And if that's the case, I don't know who listens to James Lindsay and's like, they're trying to get me to act out so they can use it as propaganda to try and win back the culture war. I guess I'll help the left. Interesting. But you know what I will say? I will say to all of these, I get all these leftists are like, don't forget that, Tim Pool inspired this, that, or otherwise. I just don't care.
Yeah, I know. And that's it, right? It's like, well, fuck, you're going to point out another case, another piece of evidence, another fucking example of some far-right extremist or some white nationalist who committed a vile act and fucking shot a bunch of people. And apparently he was watching some episodes of my show. And apparently he actually was an open fan of Libs of TikTok as well, by the way. But yeah, let's just keep ignoring it. Fucking Higher Right Check can get an actual article in USA Today that points out a variety of links in which there is a pretty definitive example of how she makes posts and then schools and then children's hospitals get bomb threats and death threats. That's incredibly fucked up. But hey, she thinks it's fucking hilarious. Lol. She'll just hold up fucking the article, make it her profile picture, and then change her logo to a bunch of bombs. Because, yeah, apparently bombing kids is fucking hilarious or something. If they're violent extremists that have been radicalized by the rhetoric that you actually put out on your show, then yes, you just said it yourself. That's one of the reasons. It's not, you don't get to absolve yourself of any responsibility of the, again, dangerous and fucking either homophobic conspiracy theories, the anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, the transphobic conspiracy theories, all that shit that goes into the ether by saying, well, I've got lots of people watching me. Other people watch me. I don't have any responsibility as to what I say because fucking people watch me and they're not radicalized. In fact, the majority aren't. The majority aren't doing fucking far-right extremism. So there you go. Checkmate. And it's like, you have a huge platform. That means you have, again, a huge responsibility to not only not spread violent conspiracy theories that can, yes, have been demonstrated to get queer people killed. That's the really fucked up thing about all of it. I mean, you can laugh at the beanie for so long, but that shit right after the fucking, after all of those, LGBTQ plus people were shot, and he was saying that it was a grooming event, that these were groomers, that it was a grooming event, and people were asking for a wood chipper. What did you think was going to happen?
Do you enjoy the Serfs, but prefer not to have to use your eyeballs? Many are saying this. Well, we've got the solution for you. It's the Serf Times in podcast form. Available on most major podcasting networks now. If you enjoy it, please consider leaving a good review and feedback because it really helps the show out, apparently, and it's free, just like the podcast.
Thank you so much for watching, everybody. This show is produced by amazing people like you, and if you want to help us out, please consider donating over at patreon.com/theserfs. The show is made possible thanks to Amazing Fletch, Anna Loves Riley, Ariane McCarthy, Cheryl Alvarez, Doug Cady, Everything Important, Hagbard Celine, La Media Panza, Matthew Scarborough, Multimondi, Omni, Peanut Butter Blondie, Political Pappy, Quiet 185, Rachel K, Riley and Anna, Roller Dragon, Ruby K, Sir Nickus, Spinach Monster, Stellar Vision, Sebastian Demo, Tech Tink, Trevbot EXE, Words Greenwood, and not to mention all of the amazing and fabulous people you now see before you.